All right, good evening, everyone. We'll call this to order. I will now call the meeting of the Committee of the Whole on February 15th, 2023 to order. Approval of agenda additions and to the agenda. Ask if there's any additions to be had right now. I do know the mayor has one, so I will turn it over to the mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. So what I would like to add is an update on the letter that we sent to City of Owen Sound in the meeting that the CAO and I had with them on Monday, and just to update everyone on what the Grey County tax rate is.
Perfect, thank you. So the recommendation for tonight is that the committee waive procedure bylaw 2019-125 for the duration of the meeting to allow for an update regarding the Grey County 2023 tax rate and an update regarding discussion with the City of Owen Sound regarding potential service extension to the township to be held under a new business, and that the order of business be amended to allow delegates registered to provide comment on item 1.1.1 following presentation of the report and prior to voting to be taken, and that the agenda be approved as amended. I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Tobin and Councillor Winters. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is carried. All right, our land acknowledgement statement. We acknowledge with respect the history, spirituality, the culture of the Anishinaabe, the people of the three fires known as Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi Nation, who have inhabited this land from the time immemorial, and further give thanks to the Chippewas of Saugeen, the Chippewas of Nawash, now known as the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, as the traditional keepers of this land. We also recognize the Métis and Inuit, whose ancestors shared this lands and these waters. May we all, as treaty people, live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship with all its diverse peoples. All right, declaration of pecuniary interest. Does anyone have a declaration or pecuniary interest to declare? I see none. Public hearings, we have none. Delegations, we are going to defer 6.1 to go with 8.1, and we're going to go to 6.2. And I would like to welcome Jennifer Miller, Executive Director of Reach Center Grey Bruce, and have her come to the microphone.
Thank you so much for having me this evening. How many people know what the Reach Center is? Hey, that's great. We're a self-funded charity that provides programming for youth and adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And I'm here this evening asking for your help for the Life Skills program. We have 3 pillars that we focus on: skill acquisition for independence, meaningful contribution to community, and friendship. Fulfilling those mandates, participants in the program are broken into streams with a staff to participant ratio of 6:1. The streams are fitness and wellness, nutrition and health, life skills, and creative expressions and arts. Next. Here's some pictures of program participants enjoying various activities that we do in the fitness and wellness stream. Next slide. This is the nutrition and health stream, where they learn food portions, healthy eating skills. The numeracy piece is woven through that as well. It's a commercially permitted kitchen in the space. Next slide. This is creative expressions in art. Woven through the fabric of that stream is also things like emotional intelligence, fine motor skills, neuroplasticity. And we have many, that's great. We have many community partners. This is an example of some of the outreach that we do within the community that focuses on things like social enterprise, labor and job training, volunteer inclusion, opportunities and supports with facilitated engagement with community partners. Next slide. So we also help out at food banks, so they learn things like safe food handling, also about other vulnerable populations in the community, which is why it's so important to give back. So statistically, 1 in 5 Canadians has a registered disability. So what that means in terms of Gray and Bruce is there's over 8,000 individuals on the autism spectrum, over 8,000 with a developmental disability and 2,000 on the autism spectrum, and hundreds with Down syndrome. There is no other program offered to residents of Georgian Bluffs that's a day program so that caregivers can work, often more than one job. Next slide. Currently, we serve over 52 families with a wait list. 21% of those reside in Georgian Bluffs. And that's just immediate families, not including the caregivers and the networks of supports and the villages, quote unquote, that are required to help adult dependents thrive. So here's the ask. The ask is $5,000 a year, every year for 3 years to support the Life Skills program. So as a self-funded charity, we get no government funding whatsoever. And so we rely on our community partners, donations, fundraising, grants to do what we do. To give you an idea, we provide a healthy snack every day. We have a service rate of 100.5 a week. So that's your multiplier with how many people that we serve and support on a weekly basis, which means that we have over 48,000 hours delivered. Snacks, hot lunches, all of those things every year. So it would be fantastic if we could count on you to support our agency and continue to do the things that we need to do to help families of Georgian Bluffs. Any questions for me?
Thanks, Jennifer, for the presentation there. It's something that we obviously do need in our community and in our territory or Grey County, Georgian Bluffs. So it is great. I think any questions for me? Did anybody have questions? Mayor Carlton?
Thank you. And thank you, Jennifer, for the presentation. My suggestion would be that we forward this to our budget meeting, which is going to be the end of February. I think it's 27th of February. And that way we can discuss it at that point of how we can fit that into the budget or what we can do to help. So that would be my suggestion. I don't know if the clerk wants us to make a motion that way or if we can just give direction. So I will leave that to the clerk to what she wants to do. Thank you.
In terms of procedure, I would recommend that we craft a motion to specifically provide that direction to staff, as we've done with previous requests, to be considered in conjunction with the 2023 budget presentation. So that staff be directed to include the request from Reach Center Grey Bruce in the amount of $5,000 for the next 3 years in the report outlining requests received for 2023 council donations in conjunction with the 2023 budget presentation.
Carlton?
I would make that motion.
Seconder? Oh, seconder? Councilor Winters. Call the vote. All those in favor? That is carried.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you for the presentation. All right, moving on with the agenda. We're down to correspondence, which we had none. And staff reports was our next one, and we were going to include 6.1 from before. It is community services, extension of the Sawmill Trail by Bruce Ski Club. The recommendation is that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute an agreement with Bruce Ski Club for the implementation and use of a cross-country ski and snowshoe trail on the former township landfill site as outlined in report CSD 2023-02. And I need a mover and a seconder. Councilor Winters, Councilor Day. Now I'll get Niall Loban, Director of Community Services, to speak about his report.
Through you, Deputy Chair, there's no presentation from staff at this time, so I believe we have a delegation. I can pass the reins straight over to them.
All right, we had 3 members of the public registered with the clerk to provide comments on the item. And I see 2 here, so I'm not sure if I have David White, Mike Campbell, and John Cameron here. members of the Bruce Ski Club. Would you guys like to present, please?
Yeah, don't have Mike Campbell. He's skiing at the moment. So there you go. Yeah, we are just hoping that council can recommend that we can come to an agreement with the municipality to create one ski trail, 1 kilometer long, with the potential to expand that on the closed landfill in Georgian Bluffs. We'd access the trail from the Kiwanis Club property that is just to the east. Yeah, we would ideally we would create a kilometer trail within sort of this year if that worked out, and then with the potential to expand if all parties are in agreement with that. I don't know if any of the councillors have any questions of me. We did present a couple years ago, so I don't want to go over everything I presented 2 years ago, although we do have new members here.
All right, and thank you for that. Yeah, and I do remember the presentation from a couple years ago, and I know Sue and I have certainly been part of it, and Ryan too, been part of it before. Does anybody have any questions? I see Brian, you got your hand up there, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have any questions. I was just going to offer some comments or some context. I have been a friend of the Bruce Cray Ski Club for years, and it's for those who, I think some of us have used the facility there. It's exceptionally well used. It's exceptionally well maintained. It has a very, very strong volunteer group that the beauty of the place is, even on a day like today where we're seeing very little snow and grass, there's still, as I went by today, there's dozens and dozens of people out there using it. Immediately following storms, the volunteers are there very quickly maintaining it. It's just so well run and so well used. On any given Saturday, you can see cars that fill the parking lot and line the roads. It houses the Nordic Club and also the Jackrabbits program, and it's really well used, and the strength of the volunteer group has made it such that the needs are expanding. So each Saturday, each Sunday, you see it swelling to almost its capacity, and I think if we can do anything to support them expanding the trails, I'd really like us to do that. I'm trying to think of the things that we would be concerned about, and that might be vandalism, it might be trespassing, it might be abuse of property, it might be littering. I would like to say in the 15, more than that, maybe 20 years that I've used it there, you don't see garbage, you don't see littering, you don't see misuse of property, you see respectful people using the property and being active and enjoying it. People pack in and pack out their snacks, and it's really, really a very low impact activity. So I think if there's something we can do to support the group, I'd like us to do that. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments, sir. Councillor Thompson, yeah, those points are well taken and right on target for sure. Councillor Day.
I can echo a lot of what Councillor Thompson just said in terms of the wonderful volunteer community. And I don't think it'll be a surprise that well, first I will ski on the trail if you build it. And secondly, I've talked to some club members about just building trail, being cognizant that even trails have an impact on a forest. And some folks have mentioned erosion on the trails and working towards controlling those, and raspberry brambles growing where paperclip has been put in. And some folks were curious about afforestation opportunities as we deforest that kilometer trail. We fully acknowledged during that conversation that none of us knew anything about landfill sites and how to maintain them and make sure that they could be checked. But just I've sent you the information about cross-country ski trails and their ecological impact already. So I have no further comments and trust that the club will move forward to develop a fantastic playground for Georgian Bluffs and neighboring residents and maintain that low impact. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Day. Any other questions? Councillor Winters.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, and maybe I missed it, but I just clarification for me. You're not proposing any additional parking on the landfill, like access would still be coming through the main clubhouse?
That's correct. Yeah,
That's correct.
we wouldn't have a parking on Stone School Road, is it, or even on your property? We would just simply access it, through existing trails, other than possibly if we were doing trail work. I suppose we might want to have access like during the summer to help create a trail, but during the winter, no, we're not looking at extra parking at this time.
And I assume that I just wanted clarification.
Yeah.
Thank you on that. No, I think it's a wonderful idea. I think it's a good use of that piece of property that's sitting there that the municipality has to own. I think it's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Winters. Yeah, no, it is a great idea to use some lands that are just sitting there vacant for sure, Councillor or Carlton.
Thank you. I think it's a great idea. I thought so when we first saw the idea presented to us a few years ago. My question comes not about the ski trails in the winter, but what happens with those trails in the summertime? Are they available for anyone to go in and use those trails for walking? Or would they still need to be paying for a membership type thing to be able to use those trails in the summer?
With the agreement that we've written up, the Bruce Ski Club would have access from November 1st to April 30th, I think were the dates. But then outside of those time periods, it would be up to Georgian Bluffs to allow for access or not have access. So we wouldn't restrict use of the trails in the summer. That would be up to the municipality.
Yes, go ahead, Nelson.
Through you, Deputy Mayor Pringle. Thank you for the question, Mayor Carlton. So the intent is that they could be used during the summer season. We'd need to do a little bit of work just working out what that use would look like, and that's not something we're contemplating at this time, but there would be no reason why we wouldn't be able to use the footprint of the trails that were created for the club's use during the winter season to be used during the summer season by pedestrians, hikers, walkers wanting to visit the property and everything else like that. As was noted by Councillor Winters, there's no access for parking at this point in time, and so we'd have to work out how that might work, and that might include agreements looking at the neighbouring properties and what uses occur on those properties during the summer as far as hiking goes. But we're not contemplating it at this time, but there would be nothing to stop that from occurring.
Thank you for those. Mayor Carlton.
Thank you. So just as a follow-up to that, I guess what I'm thinking of is we have so many issues with motorized and pedestrians on the other trails. It would be lovely to see a place where the pedestrians can go and know that they can safely walk along those trails. And I just see it being a huge benefit to our trail system if we could utilize that during the summer months. So thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. Councillor Winters.
Thank you. Just one more question for our Director of Community Service. It's a great idea. I think it's wonderful. I think we need to move forward with it. What happens with the landfill closure plan? Does it have to be updated with the ministry to allow for that? Thank you.
I see you, Deputy Mayor Pringle. Councillor Winters, no, the plan as it stands actually contemplates this type of use. If we were to move to a more less passive use than this, we would definitely need to revisit that. But the current closure plan actually contemplates this sort of use.
Perfect. Any other questions? All right, some great discussion around that topic for sure. They're going to call the vote there. All those in favor of the recommendation. And that is carried.
Thank you.
Sorry, thank you. The council approved the master services agreement and associate schedules as outlined in report CSD 2023-03, and that the mayor and the clerk be authorized to execute an agreement on behalf of the township, and that council authorize the CAO and director of community services to amend and approve subsequent related agreements. I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Day, and we go with Councillor Thompson. And any discussion? Not seeing any discussion. I'm going to call the vote. Oh, Councillor Winters.
I couldn't let it slide by.
Yeah.
Somebody had to speak. Just one of the questions. I mean, I think it's great. It's finally coming to fruition. This has been talked about for years and years through the government. One of the questions is just the amendments. What do you foresee, if I can, through you, Deputy Mayor Pringle, through the staff, what do you see as potential amendments? Are they financial amendments? Are they administrative amendments to that agreement?
To you, Deputy Mayor Pringle. We expect the amendments to come very fast and quickly, and most of them will be administrative amendments, we anticipate. In fact, they're working on an amendment right now. We were hoping to have the amended agreements for you here, but they're working on some wording in one of the articles. So because we are one of the first municipalities to be going through this process, we're one of the first ones to transition. CMO is still very busy working behind the scenes on tightening up the language of the agreement. So the intent of this request in the paper is really so that when we have administrative nature agreements and amendments that come forward, we can process those quickly without coming back to council. The intent would be if there is anything which would be a more significant impact to this, such as a financial impact, that would be something we would be bringing back to council, I would anticipate.
Thank you for that. All right, so I'm going to call the vote. Oh, Councillor Day. I'm not going to look right anymore. Councillor Day.
Thank you. I also have I have two questions about recycling through you to the staff. One, I noticed that eligible addresses do not include businesses, service clubs, churches, and municipal facilities. And I don't necessarily think that's new. And I'm of course new to municipal council, but I know schools are not part of recycling. So I'm curious how that works for the smaller businesses in our region, and if we encourage the 10th Street Strip, the Sunset Strip, and other businesses and churches to make sure, et cetera, to make sure that they're recycling. Thank you. I have a second question as well, but I'll leave that one first.
Thank you, and thank you for the question, Councillor Day, and through you, Deputy Mayor. So yes, we would encourage any business or any of the non-eligible businesses and resident and properties that we have within the township, of which we have relatively few, but we would encourage them to pursue recycling and waste control measures themselves. They're required to fund their own waste collection services using the same sorts of contractors that we do, who are thankfully have the same legislation that applies to them. So it's becoming much harder to put stuff in a hole in the ground and forget about it, and much more expensive. And so whilst that is still an option that is available to businesses, they can still choose to just throw everything in one big dumpster and pretend they don't have to worry about it. That is by far and away the most expensive option for them. And so we find, I think we are seeing in the industry that the pressures that disposal companies are facing to make sure they're diverting as much as possible from landfill are being passed on in terms of cost impacts to the companies that use them. So I think the incentive is there both from a sort of a moral or social standpoint, and I think increasingly from a financial standpoint as well.
Excellent. That's really great to hear. I know not all institutions I've worked in have recycled well, so I know we have work to do. My second question is tied to that, because living in one municipality and working in another, working in multiple ones as a teacher who's worked in multiple schools, people get very confused about what is recyclable where. And I wonder if there will be or is a communication plan to help people know what is recyclable in Georgian Bluffs.
So, Councillor Day, through you, Deputy Mayor Pringle, I'm delighted to say that working with our communications, working with our communications team this week and last week, we've actually completely revamped the waste and recycling pages on our website to hopefully provide a little bit of greater clarity to residents around issues such as that. In addition to that work, over the next 3 years, as we go through the transition window towards 2026, CMO will be working with all municipalities and First Nations communities to provide clarity around what the post-transition Blue Box program will look like. One of the key objectives of centralizing this under a producer responsible framework is to ensure that the Blue Box is consistent across the province of Ontario, and what goes into it is consistent. As you say, at this point in time, individual waste providing municipalities have their own set of rules associated to that. Depending on the market, they can get rid of those recycled materials too. With the transition by January 2026, we will have a standardized suite of materials that go into the Blue Box. We will be working with CMO on what that communication and helping them get that communication out to our residents over the next 3 years, and it will what I'm led to believe, be an enhanced collection. So taking the highest common denominator rather than the lowest common denominator and making the blue box as flexible as possible beyond 2026.
And another problem, I've done some work with recycling with my schools. Another problem we found is the contamination that happens with jars and bottles and plastic materials. I don't believe everyone understands what state recyclable material needs to be in before it goes into the recycling bin.
Yes, so unfortunately, you're very accurate, Councillor Day, and one of the things we've been working on with CMO and the Continuous Improvement Fund as they transition the program is looking at the contamination rates. So the agreement that we have in front of us today requires a 4%, no greater than 4% contamination rate within blue box material. We haven't had a study done in Georgian Bluffs, but they have just completed a study of tens of thousands of residents in a variety of different municipal settings and dwelling settings, everything from condos to rural municipalities to municipalities that provide a common dump site rather than a blue box or a curbside collection. And unfortunately, contamination rates in the province at this point in time vary between, at best, about 12% and at worst, about 26%. And the reality is that when blue box gets contaminated, i.e. people put into the blue box product which cannot be recycled, that can end up sending large amounts of otherwise recyclable materials to landfill. And so we really do need to focus on contamination rates. That will be one of the things that CMO will be working with the member municipalities as we go through that 2-year window on. And there are certainly things that CMO will have at their disposal that they can put into place post 2026, post January 2026, to try and improve that. They're certainly going to be working with us to try and improve it on the way towards January 2026, but there are means and mechanisms. So, for example, one of the things that other municipalities have found where they get that recycling rate, the contamination rate down as low as possible, is where you see streamed recycling. So you actually have to separate your recyclables into different containers before you put them out at the curbside, for example. Not something we do in the township at this point in time, but something that CMO might be considering as it moves to that January 2026 window. And we'll be working with them to try and inform our residents on that contamination issue over that transition.
Great. Thank you very much. You clearly understand the procedures, and it's really wonderful to hear that the province is moving forward with more sustainable practices.
Yeah, thanks, Niall, for that updating some more information there for us too. It's good to know. It's good to know that Georgian Bluffs is actually going to not almost be a leader, but we're going to be a front runner in all this process. And I'm really glad you're in it. So you're going to have lots to deal with and lots of people to work with, and looking forward to more information for sure. Any further discussion? All right, we'll call the vote. All those in favor? That is carried. All right, moving on to planning. So, Community Improvement Plan Steering Committee members. And the recommendation is that report PL 2023.12 be received for information. And that 2 council members be appointed to the steering committee for the 2023 Committee Improvement Plan. Need a mover and a seconder. I got Mayor Carleton and Councillor Day. Discussion. So we'll open the floor to discussion. Ryan. Discussion. Oh, Mayor Carleton.
I am wondering, when we are missing 2 councillors who might be interested in being on this, if we should defer this to the next meeting, or is it very important that we have this in place now? And if it is, I would put my name forward as one of the ones to be on that committee.
Do you have any comment there, Ms. Burnett, on this at all? Does it need to be done today, or can we defer it?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Given that there are 2 members missing, it could be deferred.
Thank you. Yep. Mayor Carleton.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll make a motion then to defer this to the next meeting. Would it be meeting of council or committee of the whole?
seconder for that. Councilor Winters, call the vote. All those in favor of deferring? And that is carried. All right, unfinished business. We had none. New business, winter maintenance. Brought forward by Councilor Rick Winters, February 8th, 2023. Council members, just open the floor to discussion. Councilor Winters.
Thank you, Chair Pringle. Yeah, last week I brought forward a notice of motion to talk about the winter control policy. And there was two objectives that I really wanted to do. I wanted council to understand what the policy that was currently out there said. And I was really trying to get an understanding of, were we maintaining the policy in full? Having a meeting Monday night, I met with the mayor and the deputy mayor and the CAO. And realistically, I think we all understand that the policy that currently exists needs a little bit of tweaking. And what I'm after and trying to bring forward is that there's some sort of measurable expectation within a policy, whatever those times may be, but so that staff, administration, council, the ratepayers all understand what those objectives are, and we can maintain it, and we know what to repeat when somebody calls us with a question. And the other thing that came out of the conversation was, in fact, that there are 8 plow routes within the municipality. Currently, only 7 of them have been really focused on, with the other one being split between other routes. So there was a delay in the service that was currently existing, but I think Monday night was a productive meeting. We came through it all. I think there's opportunity to move and improve it. I think everybody's on the same page. But that was really my wish and my want to have this discussion. So I think we're all moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Winters. And I do believe, after the meeting on Monday. Sorry, CEO Fletcher.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Pringle. And just to Councillor Winters' points, I think coming out of Monday's meeting, staff have a better understanding of some of the specific detail that might be helpful. And I am already working with staff on wording that we can include and update our winter operations manual on the website. Thank you.
Your CEO Fletcher there, so there's nothing to do here, just you have direction as to what to do and we can move forward. All right, perfect. Thanks, Councilor Winters. Notice of motion. Does any member have a notice of motion they wish to bring forward at this time? Mayor Carlton.
Actually, I have a question because I had 2 items that I wanted to add, and where were we adding them? Here? Okay. So the 2 things that I wanted to update council on first, then I do have a notice of motion. Council had given direction for the mayor and CAO of Georgian Bluffs to meet with the city manager and mayor of Owen Sound. And we had that meeting on Monday. And we discussed what the potential collaborations around water service to the Potawatomi village were. So during that meeting, I think both Mayor Boddy and I identified that we felt we needed more detail to understand what the ask is from each side. So in order that we can report back to both councils properly. So both the CAO and city manager have agreed to work together to provide additional information to respective mayors for a follow-up meeting to this initial discussion. So that will be taking place probably as soon as we can, and we'll report back with more information at that point. The second thing that I wanted to just let all of council know was that Grey County has set their tax rate at 1.48%. So that's quite a reasonable rate, I thought. Thought it was actually a little lower than we needed to go, but however, that's where we're at. And then for my notice of motion, it's so that we don't have to go through at future committee of the whole meetings and this whole rigmarole of waiving the procedural bylaw and such, is that we bring back something about adding announcements onto our committee of the whole meetings so that it's always there, so that we can always have that available to use. So I will work with the clerk on getting the wording for that ready for the next meeting. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Carlton. Yes, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know if this is a notice of motion or not, or a question, but I'll proceed and people can redirect me or quiet me. I was at the Grey County Farm Safety Association, and we typically we typically make a donation, or all member municipalities make a donation, and we haven't this year. So my question is, shall I bring a notice of motion, or is it part of our existing grants? Or B, should I bring the motion to have it go to our budget process? So looking for some feedback on that.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson there. Will I turn this over to Samantha or CAO Fletcher?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Pringle, and I'll let both the clerk and the treasurer tell me if I'm offside here. But my recommendation would be a motion come forward during budget review while you're considering all other donations. But Samantha, is that?
That's fine.
She's nodding.
Yeah. Okay. I wasn't sure. We sometimes have standing grants, donations that would exist, but yeah, I'm happy to bring that forward. So as I understand it, they just for the budget process, Madam Treasurer, they don't have a set rate that they request. Usually municipalities donate what they can. So I would suggest we have a look at what we've done in the past maybe and consider that at the budget time, if that's a recommendation that's okay for me to make. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, I just wanted to confirm with the clerk. So I can take this as direction to have that information available for February 27th budget discussions.
Yeah. So Councillor Thompson there, did you want us to go ahead with the direction of a motion, or are you good with Samantha's taking the direction to look after that for the budget day? It's already going to be there. She just.
Yeah, if I would suggest if it's on our agenda to talk to, we don't necessarily need a motion, but if we would like to have a motion for some reason, then I'm also willing to so move.
Or thank you. I think we'll just leave it that Samantha has direction on that for February 27th. Thank you.
Very good.
All right. Where did they end up here? All right, I guess we're ready to move into closed session. So I guess recommendation will be read the recommendation here that committee of the whole move into closed session at 5:37 in the council chambers with the CEO, acting clerk, remaining in the room to discuss 12.1 personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. Open meeting exemption B of section 239 of the Municipal Act 2001, review of citizen applications for appointments to township committees and boards. And I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Day, Councillor Winters. And I'll call that to a vote. All in favor? That is carried. All right, I think we're back in open session here. Committee moved into closed session to discuss matters under open meeting exemption B of section 239 of the Municipal Act 2001. As a result of closed session discussion, the following resolution is being presented in consideration. And the recommendation is that council hereby appoints citizen members to township committees and boards as follows. That Peter Hughes be appointed to the Police Services Board. That Shirley Holmes be appointed to the Owen Sound and North Grey Union Public Library Board. And that Michael Labar and Dennis Basidia be appointed to the Property Standards Committee. And that staff be directed to re-advertise for the vacant property standards seat. And that a bylaw be presented at the March 1st, 2023 meeting of council to formalize appointments to committees and boards for a 4-year period ending in October of 2026. I need a mover and a seconder. Councilor Winters. Mayor Carlton. And I'll call the vote. All those in favor? That is carried. All right, so the date of our next meeting, council will meet at regular schedule on March the 1st, 2023 at 5 p.m. If there's no other business, we'll now call for adjournment of this meeting. I need a mover and a seconder. Councilor Winters. I'm going to go with Councilor Thompson. Call the vote. All those in favor? That is carried. We're adjourned. Thank you.
Night, everyone.